after the angels bowed to Adam, and after Iblis refused in arrogance and vowed to mislead mankind, centuries passed. Generations rose and fell until a man appeared whose patience even the devil could not break. He wasn't known for strength, nor for miracles, nor for a kingdom that shook the earth. He was known for something far rarer, a heart that stayed calm when the world tried to break him. A man Allah himself praised in the Quran, placing his name beside the names of prophets, though his story was almost lost to time. Tonight, you will discover the forgotten story of Dhul-Kifl, the righteous servant, the silent warrior of patience, the man praised by Allah and tested by Iblis himself. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe and tell us where you're watching from. Now let's begin. His is a name that passes quickly on the tongue, yet carries the weight of a life so beloved to Allah that it was preserved in his book until the end of time, Dhul-Kifl. Only twice does the Quran speak his name. Two brief mentions, almost like a whisper in the middle of grand stories, yet placed beside giants whom every believer knows: Ismail, Idris, alayhi salam, prophets whose lives shaped nations, and between them stands a man whose story is mostly hidden from us, whose footsteps were quiet, whose deeds were veiled, yet whose rank with Allah was high enough to be written in Revelation. There is no long narrative describing his youth, no detailed account of his miracles, no chapter dedicated to the rise of his people or the fall of a tyrant he confronted. The Quran does not trace his lineage or reveal the trials he faced. It gives us no battlefield, no kingdom, no wanderings through deserts or valleys, just a name and two descriptions so powerful that they open a door to a mystery. Allah calls him Min as-Sabirin, one of the patients. Not simply someone who endured hardship, but someone whose patience placed him in the company of prophets, someone whose control over his soul elevated him to a rank many never reach. And then Allah calls him Min al-Akhyar, one of the chosen, the best, the purest of his servants, a title given only to those whose lives were marked not by noise, but by sincerity. So who was this man? Why would Allah highlight someone whose history seems erased from the pages of time? Why would he place Dhul-Kifl among the greatest examples of patience and righteousness, yet conceal almost everything about his life? Perhaps that is the lesson itself, that sometimes the ones closest to Allah are not the ones whose stories shake empires, but those whose deeds are known only to the heavens, those who worship quietly, who fulfill promises without witnesses, who pass through the world without imprinting their names on monuments, but inscribe them instead on the tablets of the unseen. Dhul-Kifl's name survives for one reason: because Allah wanted us to know that this man existed, that he lived with a patience worthy of divine praise, that he embodied a strength not measured by armies or miracles, but by the mastery of the self. And maybe the greatest mystery is this: that a man spoken of only twice can still teach us more about righteousness than pages of history ever could. For centuries, scholars have asked a question that the Quran leaves suspended in quiet mystery. Was Dhul-Kifl a prophet or a righteous servant whose purity elevated him to stand among them? The answer was never meant to be simple, and perhaps it was never meant to be known with certainty. What matters is not the title he carried, but the beauty of the life behind it. Ibn Kathir and many great Mufassirun looked at where Allah placed his name. Beside Ismail, beside Idris, alayhi salam, beside men whose prophethood is unquestioned, and they saw a sign. They argued that Allah would not raise an ordinary man into such company unless he too held the mantle of prophethood. To the scholars who followed this opinion, Dhul-Kifl was a Nabi among the Bani Israel, a man sent with guidance, protected by divine care, chosen like the messengers before him. But others saw something different, something just as powerful. They said Dhul-Kifl was a man, not a prophet, yet so righteous, so patient, so unshakably committed to truth that Allah honored him in the Quran as an example for all time. They remembered the narration of the man who promised never to grow angry, who vowed to uphold justice day and night, who fulfilled an oath no one else dared to make. And they said, "This is great enough. Prophethood is a gift, but righteousness is earned." Between these two opinions lies a truth that humbles the heart. Dhul-Kifl's rank is not diminished by the uncertainty of his title. His story does not lose its meaning if he was not a prophet. His worth was not in miracles or revelations or vast nations guided by his hand. His honor came from something rarer, mastery over the self. The kind of patience that breaks the traps of Iblis, the type of character that stands tall even when no pages of scripture detail the struggles he faced. Some men are known because history carved their names into stone. Dhul-Kifl is known because Allah carved his name into his book. He is remembered not because the world witnessed his deeds, but because the heavens did. His greatness was quiet, subtle, hidden from the eyes of people, yet fully seen by the one who rewards every silent act of good. So whether he wore the title of prophet or walked the earth as a righteous servant, his example remains the same. A reminder that true honor is not found in what others call you, but in who you become when the tests arrive. And in Dhul-Kifl, Allah shows us as a soul whose purity earned a place beside the greatest of his creation, regardless of which title he held. When the years grew heavy upon the prophet of that time and his strength no longer carried him through the long nights of judgment and guidance, he looked upon his people and searched for someone who could take his place. Leadership was never about power, only about the weight of responsibility, the burden of fairness, and the constant battle against one's own ego. So he stood before them and asked a question that silenced the crowd. "Who will take this trust from me? Who will lead my people on 3 conditions?" No one moved. No one spoke. The conditions were impossible. The successor must never grow angry. He must pray through the night. He must fast every single day. These were not tasks for an ordinary man. These were chains upon the soul, a vow that demanded mastery over every whisper of the nafs ego. The prophet repeated the call, searching for even one heart brave enough to step forward. And then from the back of the gathering, a young man with a calm, unassuming face rose to his feet. He did not carry the build of a warrior, nor the pride of a scholar. His strength came from somewhere quieter. "I will," he said. His voice did not tremble, his eyes did not wander. He spoke as one who already knew the storms that would come and was willing to face them. The people doubted him. They doubted his youth, his stillness, his humility. But the prophet saw something else, something only men touched by divine wisdom can see. He accepted the young man's vow, and that vow became the birth of the name the world would one day remember, Dhul-Kifl, the one who undertook the sacred responsibility. A man who promises never to get angry is not making a vow to the people around him. He is declaring war against himself. And it was that declaration, that vow of patience, that caught the attention of a being who had been watching mankind since the beginning, Iblis. He had whispered to kings, he had toppled nations, he had led the prophet's people astray and wrapped entire generations in arrogance and despair. But this vow, never to be angry, never to break, never to surrender to the self, was something he refused to ignore. Because patience is not a shield. Patience is a fortress, and a fortress can threaten everything he stands for. So Iblis watched Dhul-Kifl step into his new role with grace and serenity. He watched the people gather before him each day with disputes, complaints, and conflicts that would break weaker men. He watched Dhul-Kifl remain calm through noise, pressure, and exhaustion. And when Iblis saw that no ordinary distraction was enough, he whispered to his followers and said, "This one, I will handle myself." A man praised by Allah is not born through ease, he is shaped through trials. And Dhul-Kifl had just made a vow that would pull the attention of the most relentless enemy the children of Adam have ever known. He had barely begun his new role when the test arrived, not in the form of a battlefield or a tyrant, but in something far smaller, far quieter, and infinitely more dangerous. It came disguised as an old man. On the first afternoon, just as Dhul-Kifl returned home after settling disputes from sunrise to midday, there was a knock at the door. A frail voice trembled behind it. "Help me!" the old man cried. "My people have wronged me. I cannot sleep. I cannot live in peace." Dhul-Kifl listened with the gentleness of someone who truly cared. He promised the man that his case would be judged the next day, that justice would be served, that no oppression would stand in his presence. The old man left with grateful words and a strange look in his eye, but the next day he did not come. Instead, he returned at the very moment Dhul-Kifl was about to rest. A man who fasts every day and prays through the night treasures whatever small moments of sleep he can find. Yet again, the knock came. Sharp, urgent, unrelenting. Dhul-Kifl opened the door with the same calmness. "They tricked me," the old man said. "They said they would fix the matter, but they lied. Help me." Dhul-Kifl's body was heavy. His eyelids burned, but he nodded and said, "Come to me tomorrow during the judging hours, and I will help you." Once again, the man left, and once again he did not show up the next day. Instead, he appeared exactly when Dhul-Kifl lay down to rest. The knock hammered through the silence. Dhul-Kifl's servants tried to turn him away, but the old man cried out, "He promised me. He said he would help me." Dhul-Kifl rose from his bed. His bones felt tight, his mind foggy from exhaustion, but he would not allow injustice to pass. He opened the door. The old man repeated the same plea. Dhul-Kifl listened, soothed him, gave him hope, and guided him toward the next day. But the pattern continued, day after day, moment after moment. Every time Dhul-Kifl approached sleep, there came the knock. His nights blurred into his days. His rest became a luxury he no longer tasted. His servants began to fear for his health. Yet through every interruption, every complaint, every repeated story, he kept his voice steady, his tone soft, his heart free from anger. But inside, the struggle was real. There were moments his eyes refused to stay open. Moments his hands trembled as he reached for the door. Moments he felt the sting of frustration creeping into his chest. The human body has limits, but the heart, when anchored to Allah, can remain stronger than the storm. And somewhere in the shadows, hidden from human sight, Iblis watched. He watched Dhul-Kifl fight sleep, fight exhaustion, fight irritation. He watched him greet the old man with patience. No matter how many times he returned, he watched him hold his tongue, soften his gaze, and refuse to give in. And every time Dhul-Kifl remained calm, a spark of rage ignited in Iblis, because this wasn't just a man trying to be patient. This was a man defeating the very weapon Iblis had perfected since the time of Adam. And that was something the enemy of mankind could not tolerate. It happened on a day when exhaustion wrapped itself around Dhul-Kifl like a heavy cloak. His body had reached its limit. His eyes stung with sleeplessness. Even his breath felt slow, as if every inhale demanded more strength than he had left. His servants, worried for him, guarded the door more carefully than ever before. "No one enters," Dhul-Kifl had told them. "Just this once. Let me rest." They agreed. They stood at the entrance. They did not allow a single soul near him. And for the first time in days, Dhul-Kifl lay down with the hope of sleep. But the test was not over. A sound rose from inside the house, from inside, not at the door. A sharp tap, then a dragging shuffle, then another knock, but this time from behind him. Dhul-Kifl sat up, his heart steady, his tired mind alert. His servants rushed in, confused, swearing that no one had passed them. And there he was, the old man, standing inside the locked room where no path led and no door had opened. Dhul-Kifl looked at him, not with fear, but with clarity. "How did you enter?" he asked. The old man's back straightened. The frailty melted away like mist. His voice changed, no longer trembling, no longer desperate. It deepened into something ancient, something venomous. In that instant, Dhul-Kifl knew. "Are you Iblis?" he said. A slow smile crept across the old man's face, something too sharp, too knowing to belong to human lips. "Yes," he whispered, "and I have tried everything to make you angry. Every interruption, every false complaint, every sleepless night, every stolen moment of rest, it was me. Not a desperate elder, not a mistreated man, but the enemy of Adam, the deceiver of nations, the shadow that had followed humanity since the beginning." Dhul-Kifl's heart did not tremble. He did not curse. He did not raise his voice. He did not even stand in rage. Instead, he breathed slow and steady, as though the truth itself brought him relief. Iblis glared at him, frustrated not by failure, but by confusion. "I whispered to kings and they broke. I touched the hearts of the prophet's people and they crumbled. But you," his voice twisted, "you refused to fall. Why?" Dhul-Kifl answered with the simplicity of a man who had mastered himself. "Because I vowed to Allah, and I will not betray what I promised him." At that moment, Iblis vanished, not defeated by force nor by miracles, but by patience, by discipline, by a heart that held firm even when pushed to the edges of human endurance. And it was then that the meaning of his name became clear. Dhul-Kifl, the one who fulfills, the one who carries the burden he promised to carry, the one whose soul remained unbroken even when tested by the greatest enemy ever created. His victory was not loud. It was not celebrated by crowds. It was not written on stone tablets or echoed by armies. It was a victory witnessed only by the unseen and recorded forever by the Lord of all creation. Allah does not raise a name without reason. He does not place someone beside his prophets unless there is a quality in that person that resonates with the very essence of revelation. And so, when Allah mentioned Ismail, Idris alayhi salam, and then Dhul-Kifl, it was not an accident. It was a message, quiet but profound, about what true greatness looks like in the sight of the Lord of the worlds. Dhul-Kifl was not known for miracles that split seas or fires that turned cool. He did not stand before tyrants or lead nations through deserts. His life did not echo with dramatic victories or the collapse of empires. What he possessed was something far rarer, something even prophets were honored for: a heart unshaken by the storms of the soul. He embodied sabr, not the shallow patience people speak of casually, but the deep, disciplined stillness that comes from trusting Allah completely. Patience in Islam is not passive. It is an act of worship. It is a form of strength that grows in silence, that shapes a person from the inside, that withstands the blows that swords cannot stop. Anger could not pull him. Despair could not drag him. Exhaustion could not break him. Even Iblis, who knows the weaknesses of mankind better than any creature, could find no crack in his resolve. And that is why Allah praised him. When Allah says someone is min al-akhyar, He is not describing a moment. He is describing a life, a soul trained to withstand both the whispers of shaitan and the weight of responsibility. A soul that chooses obedience even when comfort calls louder. A soul that stands firm even when no one is watching. Dhul-Kifl's patience was not the patience of someone who avoids hardship. It was the patience of someone who steps directly into the fire of it and does not waver. He judged fairly even when he was tired. He welcomed complaints even when people were unreasonable. He faced Iblis, keeping his heart steady. This was the patience that made him Min al-Akhyar, a title given only to those whose character reflects a purity few achieve. Most people's legacies survive through stories told by others. Dhul-Kifl's legacy survives because Allah spoke his name. The Quran did not need to narrate every detail of his life for us to know his rank. Sometimes the greatest stories are not the ones written in long chapters, but the ones captured in a single divine word, a single phrase, a single placement among the chosen. Dhul-Kifl stands beside prophets not because of the scale of his actions, but because of the sincerity behind them, because Allah sees not the size of the deed, but the heart that carries it. And in a world filled with noise, anger, and impatience, Allah preserved the name of a man who mastered the quiet battles, so that generations after him would understand that patience is not weakness. It is power, it is worship, it is a victory, and it is one of the few qualities that even Iblis could not break. The story of Dhul-Kifl ends the way all great stories do, not with noise, not with triumph carved into mountains, but with a lesson that quietly enters the heart and refuses to leave. His life was not a saga of armies, nor a tale of miracles that shook the skies. It was the story of a man who fought the war every believer must face, the war against the self. And he won. He showed us something Iblis does not want humanity to understand, that the strongest believers are not the ones who shout the loudest, or who display their power, or who conquer lands. The strongest are the ones who conquer themselves, the ones who control their anger when it rises like fire, the ones who swallow their ego before it swallows them, the ones who greet hardship with steadiness, who meets whispers with clarity, who responds to provocation with calm. Shaitan fears many things, but nothing terrifies him more than a heart at peace. A calm heart is a fortress he cannot breach. A calm heart hears his whispers but does not obey. A calm heart sees his traps but does not step into them. Dhul-Kifl embodied that calmness not because he never felt pressure, but because he never let pressure rule him. This is why Allah praised him. This is why Allah placed him among the best. This is why his name, mentioned only twice, still carries a weight that moves the soul. Dhul-Kifl teaches us that the greatest victories don't happen outside us. They happen within us. He teaches us that patience is not a passive surrender, but an active form of strength. It's the ability to pause when the soul wants to explode, to breathe when the mind is racing, to step back when the anger surges forward. Patience is not a weakness, it is discipline, it is wisdom, it is the mark of hearts trained by faith. And if patience defeated Iblis once, if it broke his strategies, neutralized his whispers and crushed his plans, then what could patience do for us today? What battles in our lives could be won if we learned to pause instead of react? What wounds could heal if we allowed calmness to guide our words? What traps of Shaitan could we escape if we refused to respond with anger? Dhul-Kifl's story is a reminder that Allah sees the quiet victories. He sees the moments we restrain ourselves even when no one else notices. He sees the patience we show when our hearts are stretched thin. He sees the silent wars we fight long before dawn, and he rewards them in ways no human eye can measure. So let his story settle in your chest. Let it remind you that power is not always loud. Sometimes the most powerful heart is the heart that remains calm when tested.